The following video contains a fictional narrative created solely for storytelling and entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real events is purely coincidental. This work, including all audio, text, related content, is the sole property of the author and is fully protected under copyright law. No part of this material may be copied, reproduced, or used in any form without the author's express written permission. Let's continue to part 3 of Secrets of a First Lady. Genesis drove her own car this time. She did not request for Ezra to drive her this morning. She pulled up to an old, dingy-looking cafe. She scanned the parking lot and scrunched her nose as she pulled up into a parking space in front of the building. As she heard the tires from her Mercedes G-Wagon drive over the gravel into one of the parking spots, she frowned. Why on earth would he have me to meet him here in this dump? She muttered aloud. She opened her Yves Saint Laurent handbag and put her shades inside it. She then began tapping her fingers impatiently on her steering wheel and waited for her guest to arrive. Minutes later, she saw a white pickup truck pull in the parking spot next to her. She grabbed her handbag and climbed out of her vehicle. She walked around to the front of the pickup truck and stood there with her hands on her hips. She was very ticked off. The driver's door to the truck opened and out climbed John Gibbs, her private investigator. He went by the nickname Truly. He was also a detective at their local police department. She would only have the best working for her, and he was definitely the best in the field. However, right now, she didn't care about all of that. She was salty because he had her waiting at this questionable location for over 30 minutes. "Good morning, Genesis," he said to her while adjusting his hat. He did not apologize for being late, and he looked like he had no remorse. "I waited for you for over 30 minutes, she complained, with her arms folded across her chest. She began tapping her foot so as to release tension. "I was wrapping up a case," he explained. "I don't care what you were doing," she said. "My calls should always take priority with the money I pay you," she continued to gripe. A quick streak of anger flashed across his eyes, and he paused before he spoke. "I will keep that in mind, ma'am," he said, and beckoned for her to walk in front of him towards the entrance to the cafe. When they walked into the cafe, Genesis could smell the age in the walls, and she had to place her hand over her mouth so as not to gag. She whipped around and glared at him. "Why on earth would you have us meet at a place like this?" she asked him a bit too loudly. Some of the other customers who were eating their breakfast looked up at them. "Let's not be rude," Detective Gibbs cautioned her. Genesis made a face and did not really want to touch anything in the place. The place felt gross, greasy, and grimy to her. She was used to fine dining establishments and had been exposed to some of the finer things in life. She had not been to a greasy dive in a very long time when her grandmother worked at one, and she wanted to leave those days far back in the past. Detective Gibbs held his hand out and ushered for her to sit at one of the tables by the window. She took the roll of brown paper towels that were sitting on the table and rolled out a couple of sheets. She placed the sheets in the seat before sitting down on it. "They don't even have decent napkins in this dump," she continued to complain. "They're there now, my lady," Detective Gibbs said jokingly. "A little dirt ain't going to hurt you." She folded her arms across her chest, as she did not want to touch the table with her clothes. Detective Gibbs sat down next to her. Almost immediately, the waitress walked up to their table. "Good morning," the waitress said. You could tell that she had lived a hard life. Genesis did not respond, but simply nodded in her direction. "Good morning, ma'am," Detective Gibbs said with a smile. This was the first time Genesis had seen him smile this morning. "What can I get for you good people this morning?" the waitress asked. This time she directed her question only to Detective Gibbs. "I will have a coffee black," Detective Gibbs said. "Also," he continued, "I would like 5 scrambled eggs, 2 pieces of wheat toast, and 5 slices of bacon. I like my bacon limp." Genesis began tapping her foot under the table. The waitress had already gotten on her nerves. She noticed how the waitress had just now dismissed her. The waitress then looked at Genesis, but Genesis stopped her before she could say anything. "I'm good," Genesis said while waving her away with her hand. Genesis had a bad habit of dismissing people with waving them away with her hand. The waitress stopped for a moment and gave Genesis a fiery glare as if she wanted to give her a piece of her mind, but she decided not to. She walked away to get Detective Gibbs's order. While they waited on Detective Gibbs's breakfast order, Genesis got right to the point. "What did you find out for me?" she asked him. He pulled a folder out of his briefcase that he brought with him. He handed the folder over to her. She removed her shades and reviewed the folder's contents. They were pictures of Malcolm and places he had visited. She had suspected that Malcolm had been having affairs during a good portion of their marriage, but within the last few years, she had noticed that he had become even more emotionally withdrawn. So, 3 months earlier, she hired Detective Gibbs to trail Malcolm and provide her with a dossier of what he had uncovered. The waitress returned to their table with Detective Gibbs' order. "Here you are," she said sweetly, as she placed his coffee and plate in front of him. "Would you like anything else?" she asked him. "No, thank you, honey," he said, smiling warmly at her. He began to eat his breakfast while Genesis slowly looked through the photos. Some of the photos showed Malcolm going to the church and also leaving the church. She really wasn't interested in those particular photos. The photos that interested her, however, were the ones where Malcolm had driven Jean's convertible to a strange house. At times he was in the suits that he had worn to church, and there were times he was in his plain clothes. In some of the pictures, he was walking out of this unknown house with a young woman who was holding a young child in her arms. There were also times he was holding the child in his arms. It looked like the child was a girl about 1 to 2 years old. There were times that she saw Malcolm, the mystery woman, and the child going into the grocery store and them leaving the store with food. There were times she saw Malcolm taking packages to the same mystery house. She also reviewed the timestamps of when he went to the house and to other places. She reviewed the times when he had left those locations and the times he returned the woman and the child to the house. The woman's face seemed familiar to Genesis, but she could not place where she had seen her before. And seeing the photos and knowing that she had seen this woman's face before and could not place her was very frustrating to her. She placed the photos back into the folder and, for a few moments, she watched Detective Gibbs chew his breakfast and slowly sip his coffee. He then placed a small video camera in front of her. She pressed the play button and watched a series of videos showing Malcolm and the woman in different scenarios as Detective Gibbs explained to her what she was watching. The waitress returned and poured more hot coffee into his cup. "Thank you, my lady," Detective Gibbs said with a smile. He adjusted his glasses and then cleared his throat as he looked at Genesis, who was looking out of the window quietly. "Well," he said, "what's on your mind?" She turned and looked at him before speaking. "Did you find out who this woman and child are?" He then slid her another folder after pulling it out of his briefcase. She reviewed the information on the document. It included the name, address, the woman's age, and how long she had been living at the residence. She even received the name of the woman's child, where the woman worked, and where the child went to daycare. "She also lives with her grandmother," he said, and then wiped his mouth with one of the brown paper towels. She did not know why this information really mattered. "Who is her grandmother?" she asked him with a puzzled look on her face. He pointed at the second folder that he had given to her already. "It's in there," he said. "You are going to want to know who her grandmother is." Genesis looked down at the documents and flipped to the next page. When she saw the name of the owner of the house and the mystery woman's grandmother, she was stunned. She simply could not believe it. This had to be some sort of a twisted joke. "I don't believe this," she said with a mix of shock and disbelief. "It's true," he said with a twinkle in his eye. "And right under your nose." Genesis quickly pulled herself together. Detective Gibbs surely had earned his worth. and she was going to take care of this. Her way. "Your money," she said, and pulled out a manila-colored bundle and slid it across the table to him. He only accepted cash payments. "It's all there," she said to him as he counted the money. "Thank you for your services," she said to him while smiling for the first time since she had arrived at the cafe. "Good doing business with you, ma'am." He smiled back and winked at her. She grabbed her handbag, stood up, and walked out of the door. She made sure that she opened the door with her elbow and not her hand. She was glad to finally get out of there. She hopped in her G-Wagon and hurriedly sped off of the parking lot. When she arrived back home, she decided to play it cool with Malcolm. Instead of goading him into another argument to manipulate him like she had done so many times before, she decided to kill him with kindness. Her grandmother, Francine, would always tell her and her sister Harmony that you had to kill people with kindness sometimes. She would say that it did not mean that you were stupid or a pushover, but you were still going to be kind to them, even though they did you wrong. Now in this instance, Genesis had done wrong too, but in her eyes, she looked at it as if she had been the one that was betrayed. It was hypocritical, of course, but she did not care. All she saw was revenge, and she had to be smart about how she would go about executing it. Her grandmother would not approve of many of the things that she had done, and Genesis was taking the wisdom that her grandmother had shared with her as a child and manipulated it to her own advantages. But she reminded herself that she had gone through too much with Malcolm and helped him to build this church, and she enjoyed the lifestyle that she had lived for the past 15 years. She was not willing to lose the beautiful homes they owned, the luxury cars they owned, the luxury vacations they took every year, the stylish clothes, the well-known circles of influence they were a part of, the luxurious thread count sheets on their bed, and most of all, she loved the money. She loved her title as the First Lady of their church and the respect that it commanded. She was the pastor's wife, and she made sure that their church members and church staff knew it. After thinking about her plan on how to address Malcolm about what she had found out from Detective Gibbs at the cafe this morning, she smiled and then climbed out of her vehicle. She walked back inside of the house through the kitchen where she saw Petra cleaning the kitchen. "Good morning, Mrs. Gordon," Petra said. Genesis could tell that she was a little nervous because of Genesis's attitude from earlier this morning. But Genesis decided to play nice this time. "Good morning, Petra," she said in a sugary, sweet tone that Petra was definitely not used to. Petra had to blink back shock. She was not used to Genesis being so friendly with her. "Where's Mr. Gordon?" Genesis asked. Petra told her that Malcolm was still in the library. Genesis thanked Petra and proceeded toward the library. When she peeked into the library, she saw that Malcolm was at the desk in deep thought. He appeared to be reading something. "What are you reading?" she asked him in a gentler tone. He looked up at her. He was surprised at the very different demeanor that she had from earlier this morning. It was almost like he was looking at a completely different person. He had not seen this version of her in a very long time. "I was just preparing for my sermon this upcoming Sunday," he replied. "Anything I can help with?" she asked. He shook his head no. She had never helped him with his sermons before, and he did not understand why she was asking to do so now. Instead of answering her, he asked her a question. To him, her kindness was suspicious, especially since he told her that he wanted a divorce. Her pleasant reaction just did not pass the smell test. "Where did you just come back from?" he asked her. "Oh, I just went for a drive to clear my head," she lied. He kept looking at her as if he was waiting for her to add more information. She was not going to talk too much so as not to incriminate herself. "You should try it sometime," she smiled. "It really helps more than you realize." "Sure," he said while slightly squinting his eyes at her. "Maybe I'll just do that." She gave him a little wave and then left the library. As she walked down the hall to their bedroom, she muttered under her breath, "I'm sure you will." Thank you for joining Purple Rose Studio. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future content. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching and supporting Purple Rose Studio. Don't forget to check out our other videos.